Hello, everyone. Welcome an episode of Curious K podcast, and it's a very beautiful day, like in Lagos. And I'm very excited today because we're having a very interesting conversation with an amazing founder. And as you know, Curious K podcast is a show where we have good conversation, startup founders, ecosystem enablers, and everyone working to make entrepreneurship thrive on the continent. And on today's episode, we have the honor to have Dari Odumade, who is the founder of Chekkit. And Chekkit is a company that develops anti-fake solutions to provide consumer intelligence and supply chain tracking services, goods, electronics, automobile, and pharmaceutical producers. And the essence of this is that you're trying to ensure security and insight into this product by leveraging blockchain technology and artificial intelligence. So thank you, Darren, for joining us today on Curious K podcast.
Hi, Colabo. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking the time out to be on the show, Darren.
Yeah, definitely.
Can you just give us a brief about your background in entrepreneurship? I know you founded startup a couple of times before Checkit. So can you just share more light into that?
Sure. So, yes, Checkit is more like my third venture. I've tried this 2 other times earlier. I've been doing this for about 10 years now or more. Started off really, even before I really decided to go into entrepreneurship full time. I started off really looking at in the younger years. When I was like 13, 14, thereabout, I started looking at softwares or platforms like the Nimbus, MiG-33, and all these other apps, even Facebook, that we could use on Symbian phones as at that time. And I was interested in understanding, how the software was written, and what the softwares were built on top of. I was very curious. To understand the concepts and also understand how software companies were cashing out in the US, because at this time there were a lot of I was seeing a lot of publications about young folks who were doing things or changing the landscape as regards software technology. So this really piqued my mind then. So I did a lot of research, did a lot of, even though I was always looking to study something in the oil and gas space to make some money from university.
That's cool.
But my intention was really to learn this oil and gas stuff, make some money in the oil and gas space, quit, and then found a software company, right? That was always my plan. I tried to do that, but it didn't work like that at the end of the day. So fast forward to when I went to university. I got the chance from right off the bat from university, I started off my first company, right? So I went to study geology at the University of Ibadan. It was at the University of Ibadan that I founded the first software company, which was more like a social network for the university, kind of like a Facebook, but tailored towards students and lecturers interaction, right? And before this time, I had trained myself on website development, using different tools, even learning from my mobile phone at the time. So this spurred me to start up something from university. This social network from university, we got about 30,000 students signed up at the time. But during the time I was leaving university, I decided to switch from running that platform to building something else. So I developed something in music streaming, which was about 2013, 2014, just about the time when WhatsApp started. I got an idea that, what if we combine WhatsApp and a streaming platform together? So sort of like a Spotify and WhatsApp, put together. And then, I built this out as an MVP and got to 1,000 monthly active users, right? Fast forward to about 2015, 2016, where we then got an offer from a major label. I don't want to say the name of the major label, from a major label that agreed to give us their entire catalog to stream in 5 African countries. We also did the same thing with another distributor called Fuga Technologies to distribute about 3 million tracks in the same 5 African countries. So yeah, I mean, it was a very cool experience, but nevertheless, the entrepreneurial journey is always a roller coaster experience. In the fact that during these days, I wasn't making so much money, and these models or these business models I was developing were more B2C inclined. So which means that they needed to be critical mass before I could start generating substantial revenue from the service, which didn't really go as planned, right? Because there was a need for funding to be able to get that critical mass. So somewhere between 2016 and 2017, I got into the MEST program in Ghana, where I went to learn more about software entrepreneurship and also learn more about software development generally, and also basically the business of software. So it was a very lovely experience, and it was more like a turning point for me. As a matter of fact, it was a point where I decided to start Chekkit. But when I look back at my journey, I see that what I did was intentionally go to university to study geology, which was directing me towards the oil and gas. But just before I finished university, I already told myself that, Dari, what you planned to do originally, which was to get a job in the oil and gas, make some money to start a company, would likely not happen, because there are a lot of people graduating school and a lot of people waiting out for jobs in the first place. So the reality was just better for me to create my own job. So that's the angle I decided to go with, instead of going with the initial dream. But I mean, it was definitely a worthwhile experience, and I mean, I've not looked back ever since I jumped into the entrepreneurial journey, because it's really what I love to do. Yeah.
All right, interesting. Thank you for sharing that story, Dari. So I'll just want to go back a bit, like your first venture, right? So how did that end? What scale did you build that company to? Was it successful beyond your imagination? Did this startup fail? What were the lessons from building your first venture or your second venture? And maybe you can talk a bit about MEST. Interestingly, the last episode I had featured Shegun, who was also an ex-student of MEST. So I actually did not know that you went to MEST. So it's just very interesting to see this trend in terms of how that is helping build them.
That's right. I mean, so talking about the first startup, so Strictly UI, as it was called then, failed. I could say it failed. However, we learned a lot of lessons, and we're also able to, as far back as then, this was like 2010, 2011, we were able to listen to the users and iterate, right? And even pivot, more like. So the venture started off as a social networking platform where students could connect with each other and also connect with lecturers, to have like off campus or off classroom discussions, but we realized that students were mostly interested in gossips, right? Students were mostly interested in having the latest news about the latest boy that bought the latest car in the school, the prettiest girl who's dating the prettiest girl in school. All of this youthful interest was what was the major interest of the users then. So we decided to pivot the platform into a blog, right? So it became a blog. Yeah, it became a blog, a news blog, basically, where you had like the latest news about the fights happening in the hostel, about several other stuff. So it was a lot of fun. But I then decided to leave that company for my co-founder to continue running.
Okay.
Yeah, my co-founder, of course, continued running it, and then it got to a point where, because the platform got so big that it had about 30,000 students on it, and even till today, the Facebook group of Strictly UI still houses like the largest community of UI students till today. So what my co-founder did was more or less build around that platform to launch what is now called the Ivory King and Queen, which is more like a beauty pageant of the university, which I think is still ongoing yearly. Where students basically vote for prettiest or most handsome students to win the prize, and got a lot of sponsorship as well. But I just had the mindset of doing something bigger. At the time, I didn't see the platform scaling beyond UI. Firstly, because the name already, informs that it's strictly UI. It sounds like it's going to be difficult to even change the name to something else that can house other universities in Nigeria. The platform grew to become more like a source for beauty pageants contestants, right? So it became more of an online platform that supports an offline beauty pageant competition, which still happens, I think, till today. I'm not sure, but I think it still happens in the university. But one of the major facts is that the Facebook community of Strictly UI houses, the largest UI University of Ibadan student community till date, right? Which is very interesting for us, right? But for me, I decided to leave and try something else because I wanted to do something bigger, something I had that appetite for something much larger, and I saw the Strictly UI platform not going beyond the University of Ibadan, even because of the name, right? Strictly UI. And also because of the foundation of the setup in the first place, right? So I decided to move from that to start something else.
All right, Dari. Yeah, so let's talk about Checkit right now. So at what point did you start building Checkit, and what was like the aha moment? I mean, why did you think that was for you to build on at that point and to start building? What was the identified, and why did you think? I mean, this is the right time for me to start building this.
Yeah, great question. So to start with, at the time, that's about 2017, 2018. 2017 primarily. I haven't had the experience of building platform or building software businesses in the past. I wanted to put my skill towards something that I felt could have more impact, right, on people, particularly people in Africa. I felt it was time for me to create a solution to a problem that affects a lot of people. I wanted to put my tech skills or my business skills to something much more tangible that could actually show impact in people's lives to a large extent. So during my time at MEST in 2017, I met with a bunch of friends, really awesome people. And one of them is a pharmacist that also became like a software engineer. And she had had the experience of seeing a patient die as a result of counterfeit anti-malaria medicine, right? Yes. And this patient died of ruptured kidney because of the active fake ingredients that was in this medicine. That moment, that really touched me. That I felt like, oh, this was definitely something I should look into. During that time as well, there was a lady that came for a session at MEST, and she had this really cool idea about a QR code that you can scan to learn how to use a medicine, how to use a drug. But it had, the idea was very, very, very foreign. Let me put it that way, because the way you'll be learning how to use the drug would be with a video, which means firstly you have to have a smartphone, which already cuts out almost 60% of Africans, right, of the market size that we could reach. So I wanted to build something much more local, something that could be easily used by anyone, even in the most rural area, in the most remote areas. So I saw this as a real challenge in terms of the problem of counterfeiting, the problem of supply chain inefficiencies, and I took it upon myself to find out and to dig deeper, do some research, dig deeper to really understand what the cause of the problem was, where it started from, and what needed to be done to fix it, right? And what was already being done in the market. So I started to do a lot of research, started to organize my peers to actually go out on the streets in Ghana then, in East Legon, to actually speak to people around the area that are close to pharmacies, neighborhood pharmacies, to understand, what is top of mind for them when they walk into a pharmacy to buy a product, right? And what we discovered was a typical African, the typical man, doesn't necessarily care or bother to even check if the product that they're buying is authentic or fake.
Or is expired.
Yeah, exactly, or is even expired. The interest for them is, when I take this medicine, will it work for me? If it doesn't work for me, I'll likely throw it away, go back to the pharmacy and take another brand of the same drug. So take, for instance, you go and buy an anti-malaria medicine, you pop the pill, first 2 days or 3 days, it didn't work. Instead of going to a doctor to even get a prescription first, you even get a diagnosis first, you would go back to the pharmacy, neighborhood pharmacy, and ask the pharmacy, tell the pharmacy, oh, the last drug you gave, it didn't work. Or, I don't know why it didn't work. Probably it's not, maybe my malaria is too strong. Do you have another brand that is stronger than the other one? Of course, the pharmacy will say yes and give you another brand. Those were like the most common responses we got from people. So that prompted a light bulb in my head that, look, there were already sticker labels on product at this time from other companies, but people were not checking the sticker labels. People just trust the neighborhood pharmacies. And the pharmacies oftentimes stock up to 40%, 30% counterfeits in their stores, right? Because they make more money from the counterfeits.
And they know this? Do they know they're actually doing that? Or is it like intentional? They are stocking up this counterfeit?
Yeah, some of the pharmacies do it intentionally because they know that this is cheaper than the initial supply they get it from. Some actually do it out of negligence, not being aware that this is actually counterfeit. But most pharmacies that actually do it are well aware that it's substandard to the original product, right? But oftentimes it happens in most neighborhood pharmacies, right? So you would see that most consumers don't bother to check products. We just want to use our body as a litmus test. So that gave us the opportunity, or we saw the opportunity that, look, why don't we create a system that would incentivize people to authenticate products? And then on the flip side, the system also provides sort of a return on investments for brands who use the system. So that was what we did essentially, right? So we looked at what was already existing, labels on products already, but people were not checking these labels largely. So we decided to say, okay, let's do it this way. Let's put sticker labels on products, but on top of those sticker labels, we're going to state scratch, verify, and win. Basically communicates to the brands, to the consumers directly at the point of purchase that, look, if you scratch this label and verify, you stand a chance of winning something. And to our surprise, that actually worked well,
Nice.
up to the point where we saw over 60% authentication rates as compared to what was happening before when it was just less than 10% authentication rates, which also tells you that, people want to be incentivized for what they are purchasing, for what they are spending on their purchase. So we decided to go with the route that, okay, for every 5 Chekkit labels that a consumer verifies, he gets 100 naira airtime instantly credited into his phone. But in the process of authentication, we would ask some survey questions. So you dial the short code or you scan the QR, you would see that the product is authentic, you see the product information, you would also see the expiry date of the product, but you can also take a survey to win a reward. So if it's answer yes to take the survey questions will pop up. Now, these survey questions are tailored or created by the brands based on information or data they want to capture together. So these survey questions are then preloaded on the system with options. So you would see option A, B, C, D, depending on the number of options that the brand wants. So once the survey question pops up, all the consumer needs to do is just answer yes or no by clicking 1 or 2 on their basic feature phones over USSD, or tapping the correct answers on the mobile application. Now, we advise the brands to ask not more than 3 questions, because the attention span of a consumer at the point of purchase isn't more than 20 to 30 seconds. Which is the time that we try to key into to capture this data. So after asking the survey questions, the reward is given to the consumer instantly, which they get as an SMS, letting them know that, oh, you've won 1 loyalty points, 2 loyalty points, 3 loyalty points, and then at 5 loyalty points, you get an airtime instantly, right? And that is sponsored directly by Chekkit. So we sponsor that ourselves, right? Now, on the flip side, then the brands in the FMCG space or the pharmaceutical space, particularly pharmaceuticals, would get insights to better understand what their consumers are saying about their products, how they feel after using their products, what challenges they had when buying their products, probably the price, probably the distribution, the product not being available in their area. So we've actually helped brands discover things, discover data, or discover insights that they could have never discovered before. So it became a no-brainer for the brands, as they see the value, to continue using the solution for their products, and also the consumers see it also as instant value as well, in the sense of getting something back for the product that they purchase just for answering some survey questions.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
I think that's really amazing. And I just want us to also step back and look about the funding aspect of the business, right? So how was it for you starting out? I remember you mentioned Mest. Did you start this after leaving Mest, or it took a while? Then how were you able to raise funding, to build a technology? And if you can also lead us to the process of acquiring your first client or your first customer, onboarding your first businesses on board. I think it would be interesting to learn that from you.
Yeah, Colin, this is a very interesting question, and this is one of the most. This was like the most interesting part for me when starting this business. Based on my past experience with starting a software company, I am going the B2C route. I wanted to change that and go the B2B route, right? And that's what I did with Chekkit. So in my mind, I already had the concept. I also had the skill, or have the skill of user experience design, user interface design, as well as software development. So I decided to build out the MVP product myself, but focus more on the user experience, making it clickable, and the visuals were also apt for the clients to see, to understand the concept and all of that. So that's what I did first, and did this right after Mest. So I completed the Mest program with Chekkit as the venture out of Mest. Didn't take Mest funding, but then moved on to build the idea out myself with a team here in Nigeria. So I came back to Nigeria in August 2018, and I decided to start building out the solution. So what I quickly realized was I wanted to build a B2B, and I wanted to build a solution that can finance itself, right? Meaning that I wanted to start making money from day one. So when we started off in October, we closed our first client deal in December, right?
Amazing.
Yeah, and this happened.
Okay. Yeah. And you had the technology live at that point?
Yes. We had the technology live at that point. So what I did was, immediately I built out the UI UX of the product. I started speaking with marketing agencies, and I had I met someone who was very cool, who runs a marketing agency just around the same space I was working in. So I was working at the Mest Hub at the time, working from the Mest Hub at the time, and this person was also working from the hub. So we got talking, I realized that, yes, the best avenue for me to use to capture clients, because I didn't have any particular relationship with any FMCG or pharmaceutical business that I could walk up to directly. And it was always difficult. It's always difficult to get that top decision maker from that company, because you won't even be allowed to enter into the company if you don't have an appointment, right? So I knew that what I needed was introductions. So, and the companies that have this access to these companies were primarily marketing agencies. And marketing agencies were doing something similar to what I was doing, which was I was offering the brands access to customer data, right? Access to customer insights. Aside the counterfeiting or anti-counterfeiting part, it was primarily access to customer data. Now, the interesting thing is the marketing agencies already sort of do this for the brands by creating marketing campaigns for them. But I already saw the gap was that these marketing agencies could not, get insights directly from people who actually buy the products that they are marketing. They could get insights from Facebook, from online social media platforms. But how do you know if that person who is talking about the product on social media has actually bought that product? Right? The person could download a picture and send a picture. So we went in. So I spoke with this person, and he was like, "Oh yeah, this is great. This is something that he could offer his clients." So he got me a meeting with his clients, which is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, noodle producing company in Nigeria. So we got into a meeting with this client. I showed them the clickable prototype. So it was a clickable prototype first. There was really no code behind it. It was just primarily the UI, but it was clickable. So it felt like the real product. So I walked into the meeting with the clients, explained the solution, show them the dashboard, show them what the USSD process would look like. And there and then, the client bought into the idea almost instantly and was even asking how much. The client wanted to know how much it was to purchase the platform. And we're not selling the platform off. We are licensing it, so we could license it to you. So we had an agreement with the clients, agreed on the POC, and the clients paid. I hired an engineer. I built out a solution, deliver for the clients.
Amazing. Amazing. I like that.
Deliver for the clients within the time, So yeah, I mean, and ever since then, it's been more of a business that's continued to finance itself from sales, right? Then down the line, so we started raising grants from 2018 to 2019, raised grants up until 2020. So we raised grants from amazing bodies like the Merck Global Accelerator, that's a Merck pharmaceutical company in Germany. We raised grants from Facebook Accelerator. We raised grants from also the ARM events and also Tunelumelu Foundation. So we just kept on raising grants and also continued to sell the business to clients and kept making money from that. So like I said, from the start, I wanted to build something that could finance itself. And that's what happened. So up until last year, we were primarily raising grants. But this year we decided to, bring in people that know how to grow companies bigger and faster than we do. So we brought in VCs, we brought in angel investors, and we then did a $500,000 pre-seed round earlier in the year, about middle of this year. So I think about 5 months ago or 4 months ago, we closed our first pre-seed round of $500,000.
Yeah, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what was the process of, because now you have numbers, right? You have paying customers, you have some grants. So was the process of raising the pre-seed, was it like very fast? What was that process like?
I mean, I can say we closed the pre-seed in about 3 months. So it was more about preparing before starting. So what we did was, put all our documents together, created a data room index that could give investors direct access to whatever document they wanted to find in the data room, to make due diligence super easy and straightforward. So it becomes easier and quicker for the investors to make a decision. We spoke with a bunch of investors over time. I mean, we've been speaking to the investors since late 2020. Also, I mean, the major thing was that we did more of a soft announcement within our ecosystem, within people that I know, people that know me, and people that know other investors. I did a soft announcement to them, letting them know about the fundraise. And we also had the opportunity to pitch at the UK Tech Hub virtual pitch events I think that was in March or February this year. So it was actually from there that we started seeing a lot of interest angels, from syndicate funds, from VCs that joined into the round. So we basically firstly got the first term sheets from Japan Strategic Capital, and from there on we decided to even now create the terms for all the other investors to come in. So we basically sent out term sheets to other investors that were interested, and we raised on a safe. Yeah.
All right, amazing. I think that's cool. And so what can you say? I mean, like, was unique in terms of what you were building compared to competitors? Do you have other people building similar products in Nigeria?
Yeah, I mean, so firstly, we are the first Nigerian indigenous anti-counterfeiting solution, Nigerian founded anti-counterfeiting solution, and also serialization product or platform. Every other service providing something similar, doing something similar. Like if you go to a pharmacy now, you see some labels with scratch off panel on them. Most of these companies are founded or owned by foreigners, people that are not Nigerians, from other parts of the world. But of course, they've been in the market earlier, and they've of course tried to solve this problem from different angles, which has definitely given us more like validation about the solution that we wanted to develop as well. So, but our solution, what makes us uniquely different is the fact that one, the codes that we generate are logged on the blockchain network as an extra layer of security to ensure that duplication of these codes, or even ensure that employees and staff cannot go and supply these codes to a counterfeiter on the side, right, without it being tracked. So we do that, but also we also enable consumers to give feedback to brands through the authentication process, which you have patents for. So what we do is we basically ensure that after the consumer authenticate the product, the survey questions and the answers provided and the reward provided are all part of our solution, part of Chekkit's solution, which is a unique selling point, which provides the brands with insights and knowledge about what consumers are saying about their product or what they are doing with their product. We've even further developed that developed our consumer intelligence platform, which is basically a platform as a service, into three major products. One is the anti-fake, which is what I talk about mostly, which is the sticker labels for authentication with the surveys and all of that. The second is insights, which is basically a complete software as a service product that is tailored towards the FMCG brands, the consumer goods brands. How that works is that on top of the platform, the brands or their marketing agency can create a digital campaign instantly on the platform, and this digital campaign can be deployed as a web link, which is now going to be saved on the QR code or on a USSD short code. And then this QR code and USSD short code are printed directly on the product package, and then consumers can engage with them directly. So consumers can scan or dial the USSD short code to arrive on a microsite, and then from that microsite we do the data capturing and also the reward distribution to the consumers instantly, all as a software. So that's more tailored towards the FMCG businesses. And lastly, we have the retarget feature, which is more of a product that is a spin-off of both the anti-fake and the insights products, meaning that the data or the consumer data like phone number that we collect and the consumer demographics that we collect are housed on this retarget platform that enables the brand to send periodic SMSs or bulk SMSs and bulk survey questions to consumers through, as SMS or USSD push notifications that the consumer can then answer to receive rewards or just to give feedback directly to the brand. So all of this is, the products within the consumer intelligence suite. So we've gone past most of the arrangements of what the competitors were doing to focus to do more on the consumer intelligence side and also a lot more on the consumer engagement side, which is different from what our competitors are doing. So this basically is like the complementary end of the Chekkit solution, because the goal for us is to create like an end-to-end solution that acts like a complementary ERP solution, meaning that our solution can plug into ERPs like SAP and track product journey from the point where they leave the warehouse till they end up with the final consumer, basically.
Interesting. I mean, so some of these features you've been able to build, were they like feedback from the customers, or you were just trying to paint the picture for the businesses like, hey guys, this is what you have to do, and they were adopting the solution?
Yeah, so from the onset, right, after looking at when we saw the problem, we decided to really dissect the problem, like look at where the problem was really coming from, the problem of counterfeiting, product counterfeiting. And what we noticed that the problem was primarily around supply chain inefficiencies, as well as consumer awareness, right? So what we did was firstly solve the problem from the consumer awareness point of view first, because it was easier to do that, and then subsequently create other solutions to enable supply chain efficiencies, right? So I could say that from the onset, we had like an end-to-end map in our minds of what we wanted to do, but we decided to go, incrementally, right? We decided to start with one feature first, and then, continuously develop other features, other products that are complementary to the initial product, which is what we've done. However, we also tailor that to customer feedback, right? So based on customer feedback, we are able to further polish or better polish these solutions to fit into what the customer really wants or needs, and also aid or basically design a distribution pattern for the solution. So yeah, customers' feedback and customer engagement has given us better ideas on how to build a solution that we had in mind from day one.
Let us talk about the industry, right? I mean, the tech ecosystem in Nigeria, a lot of investment has been going to the fintech space.
That's right.
And so what industry can you call the space you're playing, and how do you think investors are like investing in that space?
Yeah, so the space we are playing in is primarily the health tech space, or also called the healthcare space. But we kind of border between healthcare and enterprise software. But the interesting thing about building solutions for enterprise and also for healthcare is the fact that money is also involved. So which means there is a fintech element to it as well. So I think also, we need to start to understand that the idea of fintech is not just a payment solution mindset, right? Yes, there's a lot of funding that's gone into payment solutions, into payment processing companies, and all of that, which are called, in general, fintech businesses. But I think financial technology goes beyond just money transfer or payment facilitation or loans and all of that. I think it also still borders to customer engagement and customer interactions, as well as even tracking supply chain. Because at the end of the day, right, these products moving through supply chain or ending up in the hands of consumers are also transactional, right? Meaning that the consumer pays money to acquire this product. The same way the supplier would pay money, the distributor would pay money to the supplier to acquire the product, which then moves through the supply chain. So my point is there are fintech elements to all of this, right? So I feel that investors that really understand the market look beyond the bubble of financial payments or payment solutions and look at other industries or other sectors that are neighboring around financial. If the interest is really around finance, is really around fintech or just fintech, the opportunities in the logistics space, the healthcare space. And you'll notice that the trend in recent times there've been a lot of investment going into logistic companies as well as healthcare businesses in recent times. Of course, yes, we know that the payment solutions or the fintech companies, as we say, get the majority of the funding. However, we've seen a lot of funding also going to logistic companies as well as healthcare companies in recent times.
And in terms of brand adoption, how has it been like? There are a lot of beverages company. Uh, in terms of adoption rate and penetration rate of this solution, I mean, what's your general idea overview in terms of what the adoption level is right now, or what can still be done to deepen adoption? Does it require government policies
Yeah.
in terms just to create a safer environment for everybody?
Yeah, I think for sure it requires two things, right? One is ecosystem support from businesses, companies that see this solution as a way to make their processes even better, right? So there is a FOMO that most of these businesses face when they see that top companies, two or three of the top companies are using solutions like Chekkit. Everybody wants to jump on such solution. We've seen something like a spike happen in demand. I mean, we get a lot of inbound demands or requests for our solution from brands, and this happened as a result of COVID. Even though COVID really had a lot of negatives, it had its positives as well. And I think we benefited from the positive end, which was more like brands began to see that, oh, I can't run an open market campaign as I used to. I can't gather people together and put a boss there and put people dancing so that everybody can come and gather around and then I'll sell products to them. I can't really do that during the lockdown. So brands were beginning to think around, okay, what are the other digital means I could use to reach, a large mass of consumers and still run promotions with them. And Chekkit was top of mind for most of these brands because that's exactly what we do. So we basically create our avenue for brands to be able to reach out to their customers or consumers digitally, right, anywhere they are, especially customers that are actually buying their product. So using their product as the contact or the engagement point, which is superb for most of these brands. So we've seen brands, coming to us directly for such a technology, and we envision that this system, this digital means of tracking consumer promotion feedbacks or basically reaching out to consumers digitally through a product package is going to be the new trend in the coming years, right? So most brands definitely would want to catch up with that. Also, the other thing I feel that the ecosystem really requires partnerships either with very large ventures that are doing similar solutions. So take for instance, what we really leverage is ensuring that we have really big partners. So we partner with big companies like Merck Pharmaceuticals, not just from the client's point of view, but also as a supplier for security features on our labels, right? So basically, we have a bilateral relationship with Merck where they supply us with coded chemicals for our sticker labels, and they also buy labels from us. We've also partnered with businesses like SAP to integrate on the SAP platform for advanced track and trace for pharmaceuticals, which means our codes can be printed anywhere in the world on any of the 100 plus pharmaceutical companies using SAP's HTTP solution, which to us is distribution and scale, right? So these are the major levers or engines that we try to fix or put in place to aid the scale of the solution, so to drive adoption as well. But there's no way we can do all of this without also having collaboration with the government. So government policies also, yes, need to be tweaked, need to be created to enable easy integration of technologies like Chekkit into highly regulated ecosystems like the pharmaceutical space. I mean, we've had several discussions with the NAFDAC team at different levels to further see how we can help out with the serialization policy that NAFDAC is trying to put in place and aiming to happen by 2025. So we have basically positioned ourselves as an industry standard for product serialization in Nigeria, in Africa, even in the Middle East. And also the uniqueness of our product serialization is that with our service, consumers can also engage with these brands that serialize their products. So it's an added advantage for brands to actually follow the path of Chekkit to serialize their product, and also it becomes like a win-win scenario when bodies or regulators like NAFDAC say every pharmaceutical product must carry a serialized code. Instead of the brands to think about it as just a cost, as an added cost, it can be seen as an investment when they partner with a company like Chekkit, because then they get a return on investment via the consumer data that they tend to accumulate when they have Chekkit codes serialized on their product. So, of course, these are the three major angles. Again, I'll reiterate. So, governments, policies, ensuring that Chekkit is at the forefront of product serialization, which is a standard that NAFDAC is putting in place now. Partnerships with really large ventures that are complementary in the value chain, in our value chain. So ERP providers like SAP that work with pharmaceutical businesses, and then lastly, working with as many brands as possible, being on platforms where the brands can easily find us and work with us. So, I mean, in the early days, we're not doing a lot of marketing, primarily because, especially on the consumer side, primarily because our targets were businesses, right? So what we leveraged was introductions to these businesses through our personal network, right? So we get someone who knows the top head of a particular business to introduce us to that person. And then once we have that leg in, and once we do a demo of the solution, we always see that the client is always interested to engage further. I don't think we've had any conversation with any clients that said, "Oh, this doesn't look interesting to me. I'm not interested." We've always had, anytime we get an opportunity to pitch the solution to a business, the marketing team or the supply chain team always sees an interest in our solution for their processes. So it's just a matter of, okay, how long does it take us to now close a lead, which is where the challenge is. For enterprise businesses such as what we run, it can take anywhere between 3 months to 6 months, in some cases 12 months, to close a very big deal.
And I would like to talk about like adoption in rural areas. How has that been like? Because I remember you mentioned the USSD part of the market you wanted to capture while developing this idea. So what has been the adoption rate like in the rural areas, in the villages? What does it been like?
So I'll tell you for sure, right? One thing for sure, right? Which is that the Chekkit solution, in terms of when you look at authentications, right? So we've had authentications and then we've had response to surveys. In terms of response to surveys, we've had over 300,000 response to surveys. Now, of these 300,000 response to surveys, about, say, 80 to 90% of that volume comes from USSD, right? That's to tell you that a bunch of consumers are actively, they find it much easier to authenticate products via USSD, via offline means, right? And when we look at the mobile application and the areas where we recorded mobile application authentication, because on the mobile application, it's much easier to be able to see, visibly locations, even up to the streets where people are verifying products from. We've seen a lot of people verify from the rural areas as well on the mobile application. I mean, we've seen, if I look at the dashboard for one of our clients right now, we'll see people authenticated from, villages in Ibadan, villages in Akwa Ibom, rural places where you wouldn't expect to have, interest from consumers, but we've seen consumers authenticating from these different markets regions. So yeah, we definitely see our solution as an easy to use, especially on the USSD side, easy to use solution for brands or for consumers rather who are staying in rural areas. So I can see, if I'm looking at as a matter of fact, I'm looking at the heat map right now on one of the customers' dashboard, and I can see, I'm zooming into Uyo, and I'm saying the areas called Idu in Uyo definitely has had a couple of authentications on the mobile application. On the USSD side, I'm sure a couple has happened there as well, but because we can't track location on USSD, we don't know exactly where those authentications are coming from. But we do know, we do have contact information of the consumers who are running the authentications.
Amazing. The role of this essentially is to reduce count, right? And
That's right.
added layer for customers or for brands is more customer engagement. So
That's
in
right.
terms of that impact, what can you say about it in terms of discouraging all these counterfeiters, because they know Chekkit is there now, so
Yeah.
it's not business as usual again.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, the goal for us is to see how we can reduce counterfeiting, especially for pharmaceuticals, to about 70%. Reason being that pharmaceuticals easily can cost lives, right? Over 100,000 people die in West Africa yearly as a result of counterfeit anti-malaria medicine. Now, anti-malaria medicine is in high demand because malaria is like an every month sickness for people in this part of the world. It's so regular. So basically, the volumes of this drug is super high, right? So for us to really see that impact, what we are really targeting is to have at most 70%, reduction in counterfeiting in Nigeria. That's the goal for us, right? That is the number that we are targeting. Now, you might say when we get to 70%, reduction of counterfeiting in Nigeria, would we still have a business? The answer is yes. Reason being that we are not just an anti-counterfeiting technology, we are more of a serialization and consumer intelligence solution, right? Meaning that we help brands to serialize their product, which is a continuous effort to track and trace, basically reduce or remove chances of counterfeiting, which is an ongoing activity in the developing parts of the world to date, even though they've reduced counterfeiting to almost net zero in those markets, in those developed countries. But product serialization is continuous, right? Because it's a continuous process. The product serialization helps the government, the central government, to have like a central repository that has the codes of all the unique packages, of all individual packages that are entering into the country. So which means at the point of dispensation, at the pharmacy, when there's a check at the pharmacy, there's a check that also goes into the central database because there's a connection between the POS service that the pharmacies are using and the central database of the country. And there's a check, run through to check if the ID on the product, on the pack, has been initially authenticated on that dashboard. If not, then it's of course marks as an original product because it's existing in the dashboard. But if the code is not existing in the dashboard, it is flagged as counterfeit and the report is sent automatically to the central repository system. The similar thing would happen if the code is already been scanned before at another pharmacy. The next code is basically flagged as a counterfeit. So this is the kind of standard that we are trying to develop for Nigeria, for countries in Africa generally, to see that possibility where we can work with governments to create this infrastructural technology, as have been done in developing countries. And Chekkit can aid that process pretty easily based on our key relationship with partners like SAP and access to key manufacturers that are distributing or importing into Africa. So yeah, that's really the goal for us in the long run. Like I said, consumer intelligence also is a continuous value added business case, right, where consumers are able to constantly engage with brands and give them feedback. So pharmacovigilance, drug adherence are things that will be continuous, right, as brands will always constantly require knowledge and insights to better understand how people are reacting to their products. Market research, R&D is one of the areas that gobs the most capital in most of these pharmaceutical businesses, and R&D is not complete without having that patient's pharmacovigilance or patient data to better understand, how are people reacting to my product in the mass, so they can better improve on that and also use that to, of course, increase their sales and outputs as well. So it's more of a win-win situation in the long run.
Great. So do you have like businesses outside of Nigeria using Chekkit?
Yes. So we had launched in Afghanistan. some months ago. We have launched in Afghanistan. We had recorded over 100,000 product authentications in Afghanistan just before the Taliban took over. As a matter of fact, we were working with the government, the former government of Afghanistan, and then we had gotten to a point where the government was interested in distributing Chekkit to or extending Chekkit countrywide, nationwide, to over 200 million pharmaceutical products. That was a big deal for us with one of our partners. However, that deal went off the table as the Taliban took over the government.
So what is your plan for Chekkit in the next 5-10 years? What do you think the impact Chekkit would have made? I mean, in the next 5-10 years.
I mean, if next 5-10 years, we expect Chekkit to be a household name where consumers can easily identify with the products, identify with it as a source for access to genuine products, right? Access to products that as Chekkit as that tool that gives them clarity on identifying counterfeit products different from original products. However, we are also targeting to be the leading software for distribution tracking, for products distribution tracking. So imagine software that tracks product journey from warehouse with RFID tags throughout the supply chain until they get to the pharmacy, then till they get to the final consumer. We want to be the leading software provider for that tracking, for that track and trace activity. So yeah, that's a really vision for us to be a global leader for product distribution tracking technology.
Amazing. And I must say, I mean, thumbs up to the great work you're doing with your team. So what would you like to tell us as a roundup?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say, firstly, the audience listening to the podcast, I think this podcast is definitely awesome to spot, innovative ideas in Africa that will change Africa for the better, and also change our processes to become a lot more digital inclined. So you should definitely keep listening to Curious K. I also want to say that there's a lot of opportunity to solve more problems on the continent. So founders, with great ideas, to definitely keep staying committed, because consistency is what can help you get from 0 to 1, and then from 1 to 1 million. Consistency is what makes it happen. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dari. I mean, it's really been a conversation. I mean, I've learned a lot about what you're doing, the opportunities, and the impact. So and thank you for taking out the time to be with us on the show today.
My pleasure, Okola. I mean, it was a good time chatting with you as well. I had a good time chatting with you, even though the network was just trying to give us nightmares, but I think we just had fun. Yeah. Great, Okola.
Right. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, thank you, Dari. So thank you everyone for to the show. That's Dari Odumade of Chekkit. And if you enjoyed this episode, or you know someone who to share the episode so people can learn about the ecosystem in Nigeria and across Africa. See you next time. Bye-bye.